fantastic, Gareth.
Sweat.
You know, I've experienced presenting and tech letting me down, analog let you down today. So when you dropped that, I went, okay, you stuffed.
Yeah, I thought the same.
And you recovered so well, and I think it gave such a sense of authenticity. I also just made me realize, you're the second speaker of our afternoon session, and this morning, Anne Thistleton, the second speaker, there was a connection point, because you also mentioned this whole this thing about the feeling that stories give you. And again, feeling relates to this unconscious, deep sense of what truth is, and yet we still allow the thinking to overrule the feeling. And hopefully this is the beginning of more balance in the world between thinking and feeling. Thank you for that. That was amazing. Our next speaker, I was invited a few years ago for dinner, a business dinner, to meet the ultimate guru from the East that was in South Africa. I was quite privileged. I thought, I'm going to meet a guru firsthand. I didn't speak one word to the guru. I spent the whole evening speaking to Gigi. So Gigi Alcock is an author and entrepreneur. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on him. He grew up in a Zulu village. Because I spent a few hours speaking to the man, I know his story quite well. But he grew up in a Zulu village as a young man, and he was expected to learn how to dance and to stick fight. And stick fighting for him was cool, and he was good at it despite being the white guy. But in his own words, oh my God, I'm bad at dancing. No matter how hard I tried, I had no rhythm or synchronization with the other boys in the dance group. So to this day, Gigi hates dancing, and he lives in terror of the inevitable question, as a white Zulu, you must be able to dance for us. And he blames his friend Johnny Clegg for making everyone expect that he will leap forward with a Zulu cry, war cry, and move like liquid muscle. And of course, when asked, he mutters with some lame Zulu joke about that knee operation as a result of a legendary stick fight on the banks of the Tugela. So, this man is fluent in Zulu. So, mina angi kuluma isiZulu gashle ngoba ngipethwa isikhathi. Kodwa ujiji umuntu manguzayo guyang jabulisa ugumema pambile.
Ngibonga kakhulu, and uyakhona uzofika ekugcineni. So this is a Kota, and this is the hamburger of the townships. And as you can see, it's banting friendly and endorsed by the Heart Foundation. In fact, Noakes has written about this extensively as a way into the township. And the Kota, I introduced with my company Minanawe cheese slices into a Kota about almost 10 years ago now, when they never existed. The Kota always had a slice of polony, slab chips, acha, and no cheese. And today, the cheese slices in Kotas are worth about 1.5 billion rand a year to Parmalat alone. Created an entire industry that never existed before. And it created it in an invisible market. And I want to talk a little bit about that, and particularly I'm going to talk about the slice of polony and the story that comes out of the listeriosis crisis that you may have known. This over here, I call this lady and her husband Golden Delicious. This lady is on the streets of downtown Johannesburg. If you take the Gautrain to Park Station, you walk down into Park Station, this glistening first world place, and within 30 seconds you walk out into Lagos, or downtown Lagos. And in this street, there's a multitude of traders selling everything from Vetkoek to business books to a whole range of different things. This lady here sells, and her husband sell 3,000 Vetkoek every single day for 1 rand each. They also sell the polony you see there, and the cheese slices, fish, tea and coffee for about another 500 rand a day. So they make about 3,000 to 3,500 rand every single day, 6 days a week. They wake up at 2 in the morning, they're on the streets of Johannesburg by 3 a.m., and then they're selling their goods. Her and her husband make about 30,000 rand a month. And yet we walk past them and we believe that they are subsistence and survivalist businesses. We don't respect them. We don't see them as a core part of our economy and of our society. She has educated her children. In fact, they've built a 3-story house, or 2 stories of it are finished, in Meadowlands in Soweto from the results of this business. And her son has finished school, and I said, is he going to come and work with you? Because they're looking for another piece of space to sell in downtown Joburg, and crazily, space is at a premium. There's no way you can get a space there. So I said, is your son going to have a job here? And she said, no, this is not a job. She said, this is work, it's not a job. In Zulu, ngiyasebenza kumsebenzi. So her son has got a job at Edgar's as a trainee, and he earns 2,000 to 2,500 rand a month after deductions, she tells me. And she earns 30,000 rand a month. But it's not considered a job. And we look at this as marketers and as businessmen, and we do not recognize the huge scale of this informal economy. This lady and her husband sell about or buy 40 bags of 12.5 kg flour every single week. So 40 bags of a very well-known brand of flour, and they've never spoken to a brand person. They've never had a loyalty exercise that has rewarded them for buying it. They've never had someone trying to convince them to buy another brand. And when I asked them and I said, what is the biggest challenge to your business? They said, we have no guarantee. And the no guarantee was that the city of Joburg could remove them off that piece of pavement that they've been on for 12 years tomorrow. But the sad thing is that the no guarantee that happened recently was a listeriosis crisis, which meant that a large proportion of their business was destroyed by the fact that we had listeriosis in Poloni, and the marketing industry and the manufacturing industry did nothing to protect her or to help her weather that storm. There's a range of businesses like this in this sector. From the small ones, I mean, even Coca-Cola's picked up. You won't be able to read it, but that Kota thing says the smile maker. I'm not sure the smile maker is the Kota or the Coca-Cola. But anyway, so there's a multitude of these businesses. In fact, the lady, and they're not all informal, that place there called Spatlo Palace. Spatlo is a Kota in the north of Pretoria. Spatlo Palace is a lady who owns 8 Kota outlets and some traditional food outlets. She bought herself a Range Rover Velar the other day for 1.6 million. She considers herself unemployed. And I said to her, I said, and why did it cost so much? She said, I put every single thing I could onto that Range Rover. If it had a sunroof, I wanted the bigger one. The seats vibrate, everything. And she built it out of that. She was the daughter of the rector of one of the Technicons in Pretoria, and she's very educated, and she decided actually the opportunity lay in the informal sector, in food that was culturally relevant. And the important part about most of the informal economy is the fact that, and a lot of people have spoken about it, is about it connects to culture and is very much part of people's lifestyle. She has electric scooters that shoot around delivering the Kotas. She has a tuk-tuk, she has bicycles. And we have that whole range, and as you can see from the numbers there, the Kota industry alone is worth 10 billion rand a year. The fast food, what I call gasi course industry in the townships, employs about 200 to 300,000 people and is worth almost 90 billion rand a year. I think by comparison, KFC is somewhere around 3 to 4 billion rand turnover, so it gives you an idea of the scale. So we have this massive industry, but it's an invisible economy, like most of the informal economy, or what I call Kasinomics, or the Gasi economy. So there's this huge sector, and it's not only in fast food, at schools. This lady over here, I was chatting to her. She's at a school in Tembisa, and she sells a range of different foods to the school kids. She even sells little velvet roses at Valentine's Day. I said to her, how long have you been here? She said, I've been here for 26 years. I was like, you've been selling here for 26 years? She said, I put two of my children through university, and they're unemployed, sitting at home. And my husband's been unemployed that whole time. And she sells for 3 times a day, and she makes 6,000 Rand a month profit from doing that. We have a spaza sector of informal stores. There's about 100,000 of these, turning over anywhere between 150 and 200 billion Rand a year. But we see these as survivalist and subsistence businesses. I asked this lady, I said, would you, to test the subsistence and survivalist business theory, I said to her, would you get a job if you could have a job? And she said, Mtanam, what would I do? Would I come to your house and wash your underpants? Which put into perspective, she could be working for 8 or 9 hours a day, traveling on a taxi, and here she has her own business. And then what happened? We had this listeriosis crisis, and importantly, the manufacturers and the industry went and spoke to the people like ShopRite and Pick n Pay, and went and withdrew the stock, and we saw lots of images like this. And the reality is no one did anything for that Kota outlet, or for the lady selling at the school, or for Golden Delicious in the streets of Joburg. And primarily is because we do not know how to talk to them. We first don't know that they exist, or we pretend they don't want to exist, despite the fact that they've created the entire polony industry, or been the primary marketers of it. But we don't know how to talk to them. So, Julius Malema said, white people must understand, English is like airtime. Sometimes it runs out. So, people also speak a different form of English. They speak an English that they've adopted and they've created themselves. And I was doing some work around hair products in Soweto, and hair extensions in particular for a client. And I came back from Soweto, and I said to my wife, who's white, I said, you won't believe how many women in Soweto have Brazilians. And Sue said, yeah, that's very interesting. And I said, yeah, they showed them to me. And so Sue said, what? I said, and I felt them, they felt real. So, and I realized that that my wife's idea of a Brazilian was a certain way of shaving, and the Brazilian was a Brazilian hair extension. And this is the issue, is that beyond the joke, is that there's a way people speak, there's a way people use English. But we don't know how to do that, because we haven't been into those streets. We're not talking to people. We expect them to learn our language. Pepe, thank you, you're learning Zulu. We should all be speaking Zulu. And more importantly, we should be speaking the language that people speak. If you look at Portuguese, Portuguese is a complete, you have Preto Portuguese from Mozambique, and Brazilian have a different type of Portuguese, and mainland, and etc. The same happens for English, but we still insist that our marketing material and our information has to be the English of the Queen. And we're not speaking it. We either want to speak vernacular, the way Shaka spoke it 1,000,000 years ago, or we want to speak the Queen's English. And somewhere in between is the way we should be properly communicating with people in these societies. Thank you. The other important thing is that we have to recognize there are a multitude of businesses out there in this informal sector, which represent a huge part of our economy, not only as an opportunity, but also creating livelihoods and actually generating the incomes that are spent to buy the things that we are advertising in the formal sector or on traditional forms of media. And we should actually be respecting these businesses, and we should have respected them when this happened, and we should be finding ways to communicate with a sector that is, I call it the invisible sector, and someone pointed out to me that I was incorrect. It was invisible to many of us. It's not invisible to the vast proportion of our population that interacts and buys and does all sorts of activity in that environment. So we have to respect those businesses. We have to give them the dignity they deserve. We have to find ways to interact with them. We have to find ways to partner with those businesses. The Parmalat story I told you about has been worth 1.5 billion Rand to Parmalat, built on a platform called Parmalat Puma Pambili, which was Parmalat puts you ahead, which supports and works with up to 5,000 small Kota outlets. And so when the listeriosis crisis happened, we were working with these outlets, and despite the fact competitors are 25% cheaper than Parmalat cheese slices, Parmalat retains almost 85% market share as a result of partnering with and being respected and giving reciprocal respect. So I wrote a book called Kasinomic Revolution, Kasinomics about this, so I must just market myself, seeing it's a marketing forum. And because I was only given 15 minutes, and the gong has been raised. But I think that the important thing is that there is a Kasinomic revolution about to happen. I use the word Kasi from Township in South Africa because there is no term for the informal economy, whether it's in a Kasi or whether it's in downtown Joburg, or whether it's around us here. As you drive out, you're going to find someone selling something in this Kasinomic environment. And this revolution is not only happening in South Africa, it is happening throughout Africa. In countries like Nigeria, there's a business called the Tolerant Group, who turns over $1 billion a year on instant noodles. And the instant noodles go into Township, or the equivalent of Gasi food. And they built this $1 billion industry through 500,000 distribution points, business practices which support and help these Mashai ladies, as they call them. And there's a revolution, and if we don't recognize this revolution, we're going to be left behind by this Kasinomic revolution. All that's happening at the moment is that business is churning over the same small pot of people, the same small amount of businesses. Insurers are insuring all the people who have, there's 10 million cars uninsured out there because people won't build insurance products that are appropriate to people who own their own cars, who live in a township, who sometimes unveil and the sound system is more expensive than the car, but they can't get it insured for that. So beware that we're not left behind by this Kasinomic revolution, and it is a rising revolution, and you're going to see more of it. Thank you.